Here's the scariest cursed objects that actually exist. The Hands Resist Him painting, painted by Bill Stoneham, is considered one of the most haunted pieces of art. Every person who has ever owned this painting shares the same story. They claim that once nightfall hits, the figures in the painting would either move or disappear completely. People also claim that even seeing the painting immediately makes them feel sick and weak. If this isn't scary enough, the owner of the first art gallery to ever show the painting, as well as the art critic who reviewed it, both died within 1 year of seeing it.
Halloween facts that you didn't know. Skittles is the candy that is bought the most on Halloween. A man once carved a pumpkin in 16.4 seconds, and it's a world record. I bet you didn't know that trick-or-treating has existed since the medieval times. Halloween brings in the second most amount of money among all holidays besides Christmas. And finally, a city in Canada made it illegal for kids 16 years and older to trick-or-treat.
Disturbing Facts You Wish I Never Told You, Part 7. Meerkats murder the babies of their rivals. You can't hear anything in space. There's 6 million skeletons under Paris. Nutmeg is no hallucinogen.
Maps that will change the way you see the world. This map shows the household incomes that are needed to feel comfortable living in each US state. This map shows the number of cities that each US state has with a population over 100,000 people. This map shows the major regions of where all of the zip codes are, with each number being the first number in your zip code. This map shows the obesity rates by country from just a couple of years ago, with China being in the green of under 10% and the United States being in the red of over 40%. This is a map of Italy that shows where the mafia is the most active, with the red areas being the highest. Anchorage, Alaska is actually more central to the world than you would believe, and this is showing all the average flight times to major cities around the world. This map shows the strange distribution of where crested porcupines come from. How did they come from both sides of the Sahara Desert? This map shows where all the deserts are around the world. This map shows where all the vault locations are in the Fallout series.
Gruesome Facts You Didn't Know, Part 225. In 1559, King Henry II of France was participating in a jousting tournament. During a match, he was severely wounded in the eye and brain by a splintered lance. He died of his injuries 10 days later, with his death leading to the decline of jousting as a sport in France. Actress and Playboy centerfold Yvette Vickers was last seen in 2010 after withdrawing from her family and friends. When neighbor Susan Savage noticed cobwebs on the mailbox, she went inside to investigate. Upstairs, she discovered her mummified body. Lieutenant Colonel William Henry Rankin is one of only 2 known persons to survive falling from the top of a cumulonimbus thunderstorm cloud. He was forced to eject from his jet when his engine failed. It took him 40 minutes to finally reach the ground. During his descent, he suffered from frostbite, and severe decompression caused his mouth, eyes, ears, and nose to bleed.
I mean, if Neuralink wasn't already scary enough, Elon Musk has just said that they are now working on the ability to help people that have lost limbs by attaching parts of their Optimus robot to their body and then using the Neuralink chip to control them. The company recently implanted their second patient with the chip, and in their most recent update on his recovery, Elon said, if all goes well, there will be hundreds of people with Neuralinks within a few years, maybe tens of thousands within 5, and millions of people within 10 years. I mean, we joked about people's chips getting hacked before, when it was just their brain, but now, throw in their arms and legs too? Hollywood, how about we stop making sequels to everything, and someone make a movie about that.
This high school resource officer was caught having a relationship with a 15-year-old girl. The girl only came forward when she was 19 after she spoke to a therapist of what had happened. This all began in 2019 when 34-year-old officer Christian Lennon got a hold of this girl's number and then used that information to find her on Snapchat. He then used his power to reach out to her, forming a relationship and then eventually essaying her in his car and his house multiple times. He told the girl that if she ever told anyone everyone, they wouldn't believe her and they would all be on his side. Finally, in 2023, she went to police and they arranged a phone call between the girl and Christian where she brought up the relationship and everything they've done, and he unknowingly cooperated. His confession on the phone incriminated him, and that was all they needed to arrest him. But what was really weird is that when he spoke to investigators, he argued that he thought the girl was 16, and that meant she was of legal age to consent, which shows that this officer doesn't even know the law.
So I'm sure you all remember back in 2016 when the whole clown situation happened, and it was, a bit terrifying to say the least. You're easily scared. Do not watch this. These two stories happened on the same day in the same neighborhood back in 2016. So, a young boy was home alone for the evening as his parents went out for a meal, and down the road a young girl was babysitting another child whose parents went out. Well, why was everyone's parents out that night? Jesus. Now, the young boy was just sat in bed, playing some video games, watching TV, and then eventually tried to get some sleep, until he heard a load of banging coming from outside the window. When he looked out the window, he saw this standing at the end of his driveway. Then he looked out the other window and saw this at the other side of his house, and then this at his actual window. Nah. He called the police, they came, but the men had already run off. Now over to the babysitter on the other side of the road. This was about 10 minutes afterwards. There was a creepy looking clown statue just sat in the middle of the lounge after she put the child to bed. She called the dad and said, "I didn't realise you liked clowns, it's creeping me out, do you mind if I move it?" And he said, "There is no clown statue." She looked out of the window and again saw two men standing there, staring in. She quickly called the police, pressed 5, dropped the phone and hid upstairs. Eventually the police came, arrested the men, but there was actually one inside the house. She said, "Where was he?" And they said, "He was hiding underneath the child's bed." May.
The scary truth about Santa Claus. I do this all in one part, so make sure you double tap this video. This mom told her kid to stay in bed. It was Christmas Eve. The boy didn't listen. He really wanted to see Santa Claus. It said that Santa Claus actually kidnapped the kid for not listening to his mom. To this day, nobody knows where he is.
Crazy things happening in the world right now that you will seriously not believe. This tiny water creature was frozen 24,000 years ago, and it has just been brought back to life. This means we're actually a stage closer to bringing people back from the dead, meaning people that have been cryogenically frozen will be able to come back to life in the near future. Next, scientists have identified 29 habitable planets which aliens could be observing us from. This is that they are close enough that they could be observing us right now, and close enough to intercept our radio and TV waves, meaning they'd be able to hear broadcasts and all that kind of thing. Could they be out there? Finally, construction is set to start in the next couple of years for this space hotel. It is called the Voyager Station. They already have their website up available for booking now. It's set to open in 2027 with hotel rooms, gyms, swimming pools and so much more. Let me know in the comments down below if you want to stay here.
These are disturbing Disney World facts. Up first, Disney's first water park, called River Country, closed permanently in 2001 after a crazy reason. An 11-year-old boy died from a brain-eating parasite he got in the water at the park. The park is still there, completely abandoned to this day. Next up, the actor who used to play Gaston at Disney World Orlando accidentally killed himself by attempting to shoot fireworks off of his head. Next up, Disney World is one of the most popular places on Earth where people scatter the ashes of dead people. It actually happens so often that the employees have a special code to use to report it for cleanup. Finally, in 2010, a restaurant manager at Disneyland Paris took his own life one day after working a shift. But before doing so, he left a note on the wall that translated to, "I don't want to go back to Mickey ever again."
If you ever see a faceless man in your dreams, you need to run fast. Believe it or not, your brain cannot actually make up faces. So any face you see in a dream is actually real and someone you've seen before. Even the evil and most terrifying ones you've seen in your dreams are actually real and you've seen them somewhere in real life. You just can't necessarily remember it. However, if you see someone with no face in a dream, this is a different story. These faceless people, are often referred to as the faceless visitors, are actually demons who are visiting your dreams. Your brain physically can't make up faces. These faceless visitors who are actually demons come to visit your dreams, and sometimes worse.
Now that I've seen it, I can't unsee it. So the other day, a Reddit user posted this photo to Reddit. It's of his apartment at night. He had been complaining of hearing rustling noises in his apartment over the last couple nights. Many users thought they could kind of see something in this area of his kitchen, but I couldn't, so I looked at the brightened version. This is the photo brightened. And I know what you're gonna say, yes, it does look like Keanu Reeves, but look at how tall he is compared to the fridge. But it gets so much worse. This is a video he took of his apartment at night where you can see something happen to the light in the kitchen. But let's look at the brightened version. Yes, it's terrifying, but is it a ghost?
Can someone tell me what this is? Did this man find a dragon? Is the Loch Ness Monster real?
Surprising facts about sleep you didn't know. 1 in 3 people don't get enough sleep at night. Your body temperature naturally drops 1 to 2 Fahrenheit when you sleep. 60% of people struggle to sleep due to overheating. But what if your mattress is the thing that's causing you to overheat at night? I had this problem, but recently I switched my mattress to the Emilux cooling mattress. I've been testing it out and let me tell you, my sleep is much better. With its thermosync technology, the mattress keeps your body temperature balanced all night long, so you don't have to wake up in a sweat any longer. Plus, it offers full body pressure relief, so whether you sleep on your back or on your side, you'll wake up feeling refreshed. And if you share your bed, you'll love the motion isolation feature. The partner tossing and turning won't disturb your sleep anymore. So if you're ready to get better sleep, get the Emilux cooling mattress now and always wake up feeling refreshed. Check out the Emma Summer Bank Holiday now. Get up to 40% off and an extra 5% with my code LeonsFacts. But hurry, click the link because the offer ends soon.
This is so creepy. So this man in this photo is a serial unaliver, and he basically was freed from prison because of old age. Now, according to what I looked into, he unalived around at least 19 people in the 70s and the 60s, tourists that traveled to Southeast Asia. He would basically unalive them, mainly women. He was called the bikini unaliver because that's usually what they were wearing when he would unalive them. Well, they actually, they finally caught him. He served 19 years in prison, and then he was released because of old age. So basically they said that he seemed like he was too old to do any kind of crimes again since he was in his 70s, and they went ahead and released him. Now he's sitting here on this plane next to this woman, and she's probably just like, why are you guys sitting next to a serial unaliver? But yeah, since when do people release people because of old age? It doesn't matter how old you are. You can rot in prison, in a prison cell, after unaliving people. And who says he can't do it again?
We are all dead. This shows all the conspiracies in the world, from the most well-known ones to the darkest of the dark. And as I'm sure you know, in this series we're going from the top to the bottom, so let's go. This is wild and will have you thinking for a long, long time. So it's scientifically proven that after death there is around 7 or 8 minutes of brain activity remaining. And a recent study has just been done which could suggest this happens for hours. Along with this, there's been the theory for years that life flashes before your eyes when you die. So here's the theory, and this is scary. So time is distorted when you're in dreams, right? Like a dream may actually only be about a minute, but feels to you when you're in it like an hour or 2 hours, even longer. So when you die, if your life does flash before your eyes, you'll relive all your memories in real time in that 7 or 8 minutes, but it actually feels to you like your entire life. So what if we are all dead, laying in a hospital now or whatever, and our life is flashing before our eyes right now and we're reliving all of our memories? Obviously there's things like, how the hell am I filming this video then? But, I mean, it's pretty scary to think about. Hit that follow button, it's going to get even crazier.
I would have peed myself if I saw this. So Sale was a paper delivery boy years ago, and what he saw on his route is terrifying. Before we dive in, if you love ghost stories, make sure you check out my podcast. This week's episode is all ghost stories from listeners. So when Sale was a paper delivery boy, he always delivered to this one house in his neighborhood where an old woman lived. She was not in great health, so she actually had given him a key so he could let himself in and leave the paper on the table. One day he lets himself in the middle of the day, and he sees that she's in her room lying in her bed fully asleep. This is not normal for her, so he calls to her, but she doesn't answer. So he puts the paper on the table and he just heads out. But the next day is the same exact thing. He comes into her house and she's asleep in her room, not moving and not answering. So he's like, okay, if I come back tomorrow and it's the same thing, I'm going to call for help. Except the next day when he arrives, she greets him at the door. And she's saying things like, thank you so much for delivering my paper. I loved seeing you around. I'm gonna miss you. And he's like, okay, that's kind of weird. So the next day he comes back to deliver the paper and there's cars all outside. So Sale runs up to a police officer and is like, what's going on? And the police calmly explains that the woman in the house had passed away days prior and a neighbor finally noticed and called it in. So then who did Sale see when he went to the house?
Most common zodiac signs amongst different types of people. Billionaires, Leo. Serial killers, Pisces. Famous people, Aries. Major CEOs, Capricorns. Psychopaths, Scorpios.
Facts that will mess with your perception of time. There is probably a Greenland shark out there that was alive when Henry VIII was crowned king. The Great Pyramids were further away to the Romans than the Romans are to us now. Rome is 2,500 years older than Italy itself. Italy only became a country in 1861. The last guillotine took place in France at the same time Star Wars came out in 1977. Sharks are actually older than trees, roughly 350 million years old. George Washington never knew dinosaurs existed. He died before they were discovered. This tree right here was fully matured when the Great Pyramids were under construction.
Things you never knew your body was capable of. Your brain can hold 25 million gigabytes of information. Your bones are 5 times stronger than steel. Human bodies glow in the dark, your eyes just can't detect it. You become 35% stronger when you have an adrenaline. 50% of your grip strength comes from your pinky finger.
Breaking news, Bella Brave has been put into a medically induced coma and they do not believe she is going to make it. Many of you may recognize her from being a star on this app. You may also know her as Bella Brave. Now, as of July 10th, her mother has posted that she has been medically induced in a coma. She said, quote, they've told us they don't know if she'll survive this. I know she will. I know she has an army praying for her. Her mother shared that Bella had developed an infection in her lungs and also may have developed a form of bronchitis. Doctors say the type of bronchitis that she developed is, quote, irreversible and a chronic condition. It is also known as popcorn lung. On July 9th, her mother posted that although Bella was, quote, sitting up, she began to struggle. She went on to say, quote, she lost 4 pounds in one day, putting all her energy into breathing. Her CO2 started to increase and she started to doze off and have delirium. She was alert enough to tell me she turned into a piece of bread, and she also knew that she was at the Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto. She continued by saying they knew at that point they needed to sedate her and intubate her before she crashed. We left having them tell us they didn't know if she'll make it through the night, but she did. However, the following day, her mother said that she was placed into a medically induced coma. The best of the best were telling us it looked really bad. But I kept lifted stare intensely listening until I heard what hope there was left that we could hang on to. She has also shared that Bella was put on a large dose of steroids. She said this is the one option they have left to help her lungs work again. Day 3 will give us more information on how soon we could see her lung function improve. She's stable, and that in itself is an improvement for now. To stay up to date on this case, make sure you click the playlist below. Prayers for Bella, and I'll keep you guys updated. What do you guys think? Drop in the comments.
Did you know there's just a ghost ship out there floating around the ocean filled with rats? And I mean, the ocean itself is terrifying enough. I could do many videos on weird things in the ocean. But let's start with this one, because it's not just a few rats on a ship. It's rat infested, apparently, and those rats eat each other, and people are worried that if they run into the ship, it might eat them too. So the ship behind me is called the Lubov Orlova, and if I butchered that, I'm sorry, I don't speak Russian. And it was, as you can see, a fully functional ship up until 2006, when so much debts were collected that it had to be docked, and it was docked for 2 years. And that's where the rat thing comes in. So after 2 years of just sitting there, which was prime time for anything to sneak on board, especially rats, people decided that they were gonna scrap it. So they took it to scrap it, but then the line that they were towing it with, or whatever the nautical term of that is, broke. And it floated for a while. But it was still in the Canada area where it had been docked. Now, Canada decides they're gonna grab the ship, and they were gonna scrap it. But for whatever reason, when they did finally get this escaped, unused ship, they went into international waters and just let it loose to go wherever it might go. Nobody really knows why they did it. They just decided to. And that's when this ship became a ghost ship, because people didn't know where it was after that. Then fast forward to 2013. Somebody spots the ship closer around the area of the UK and Ireland, and that's when they say there's a ton of rats on board. Now, this hasn't been completely confirmed, but that's when this rat story starts. After that first sighting of where the ship finally ended up with, people start pouring in more sightings, saying that this ghost ship is floating around, is heading towards Ireland, and it's filled with rats. Rats that eat each other and are potentially dangerous to other people. So the most chilling thing, in my opinion, about this whole ghost ship filled with rats is that there's at least one story out there of somebody who found this ship, sent a distress signal, and they then themselves went missing. So what happened to them? Did the rats get them? Because that's just, ugh, I hate that. Anyways, in around 2015-ish, 2014, maybe a little earlier, people were very concerned that this ship was going to find its way floating into Ireland and release all of these horrible, horrible rats. And that was a concern for a while, and at my understanding, it still kind of is, but it's been 10 years since then, so I don't know if that's still something people are panicking about, but what do you guys think about this ghost ship?
This pedophile committed a crime so disturbing that a petition was created that asked the government to publicly hang him, and the petition gathered thousands of signatures. This is 33-year-old Benjamin Taylor from West Virginia, and in 2016 he would commit one of the most sickening crimes I've ever read about. Back in 2016, Benjamin was living with his girlfriend, a woman named Amanda Adkins. At the time, Amanda had recently given birth only 9 months ago to her baby daughter, Emily. Emily was a beautiful young girl. And I want to warn you all right now, the details that we're about to discuss are some of the most disturbing I've ever covered. So in October of 2016, Benjamin had only been living with his girlfriend Amanda for about a month. And on the morning of Emily's death at around 4:30 a.m., Amanda woke up and went downstairs to search for her baby. When she went downstairs, she saw Benjamin Taylor with his pants unzipped sitting in the dark. Amanda then noticed that her 9-month-old daughter's limp body was lying nearby on a pile of sheets and laundry. Amanda screamed at Benjamin and grabbed her daughter's lifeless body, but he remained silent and stared at the ground. The details of what had just happened down there are disturbing. Local authorities would call this the worst assault that they had seen in decades. You see, Benjamin and Emily were covered in the infant's blood. After the child's body was examined, the authorities were able to determine that she had been assaulted by an adult male multiple times. The infant child was also bleeding extensively and had suffered head trauma. Emily had a fractured skull and brain hemorrhaging. Authorities believe that Emily may have been shaken violently, or even thrown to the ground or slammed against a hard object. When police arrived at the scene, Benjamin Taylor was observed trying to wipe something off of his groin. That was eventually determined to be Emily's blood. He also told authorities that he remembered taking the baby to the basement, but that he blacked out after that. You see, he had been smoking and drinking the night before, and that was his excuse. Thankfully, Benjamin was convicted of all charges and sentenced to life in prison without mercy, as you can see right here. But for some people, that just wasn't enough. And like I said at the beginning of this video, a petition was created which asked the government to publicly hang Benjamin. And this petition, before it was shut down, gathered over 50,000 signatures. I mean, this truly is one of the worst things that I've ever covered here on my TikTok. And personally, I don't think that life in prison is enough for this guy. I mean, the pain that poor Emily went through before she was eventually killed is just heartbreaking on every single level. And I just hope and pray that the other prisoners that are in there with Benjamin find out or already have found out exactly what he did to land himself in there. If you want to hear more true crime stories, listen to the podcast Murder in America that I co-host with my wife, Courtney. It's available on all streaming platforms.